Welcome to Wednesday Inspirational Book Lounge. I'm Anna Murby, your host. This season, we're reading Mephibosheth, A Twisted Life of Unexpected Grace and Mercy, the true story of a medically fragile child whose life became a living testimony of God's grace. This book invites us into a story of deep love and brokenness, revealing how God's mercy often shines brightest in the most fragile lives. Enjoy the episode.
Mephibosheth, A Twisted Life of Unexpected Grace and Mercy, by Chaplain Aaron. Read by Hubert Carl. Chapter 6. The Doctor is In. The joy of having a newborn baby is exhilarating to the entire family, but especially to the intimate relationship between mother and her child. This is the honeymoon of the new life that includes everything. Hours spent looking into each other's eyes. A waking child will study Mom's face with quiet intensity, learning it by heart. Every blessing or flaw that a maternal visage might contain. Of course, this also means the blessing of waking every 2 hours in the middle of the night to care for the needs of that precious new life. The patience of a mother giving her child is classic in every way. What a beautiful experience! And what a glorious way to show love of God through nurturing a new life towards successful longevity. Yet that is for a healthy baby. Mephibosheth did not have that pleasant introduction into this new world. He was born the same as other babies, through the difficult act of birth. We are glad no one remembers that moment. On top of being born through the induced labor in the 8th month, the first minutes of his life were spent without warmth of his mother. The mind must wonder what it subconsciously retains when an infant never receives the loving care, only rejection from his birth mother. Yet this was the case of this boy, in physical need of much, but also in emotional need as well. The next part of his first day was spent in an incubator, set off to the side for a complete medical examination. This was not a time of hugs, sniffs, and kisses, but of multiple strangers poking, prodding, and talking about the child, never to the child. It was almost as if he was not in the room, as if he was a thing or an object. Machines hummed, strangers leaned over him, notes were dictated. This patient was his declared name by doctors, nurses, techs, and clinicians. Occasionally someone defied the norm by stating, "He has a name, you know." This trend was repeated for the first couple of months, until the day he appeared at Paulindale's home. He was no longer known as this patient, but he had a peculiar name. Mephibosheth was a unique boy with physical ailments to match his extraordinary but brief life. Now in the arms of his new mom, he would be nurtured through the natural interaction between mother and child. His new life was beginning. And finally it included the deep love of a doting mother. She noticed a twist and a bulge at the back of his head, which was unusual. The medical chart explained that this was a mass of some sort on the base of his skull. The skin was soft, as the center of the skull had not yet fused completely. This must have been painful, as his head was growing, and this unknown mass needed to be understood and perhaps remedied. Other quirks in his body would naturally be addressed along with this deformity. Only a true mother knows what to look for in an infant and what to recommend to doctors when seeking answers. This was the mindset of Dale each and every day as she cared for this boy, along with several others in the same house. Shouldn't a mother stay home and simply enjoy the blessing of her newborn? Not if it is a medically fragile infant. This new life would include multiple medical visits every week. The first stop would naturally be the local pediatrician, who had become acquainted with the ministry of the Luce family. Dr. Jess Stone was a well-known pediatrician in the Roseville area. His gentle care for every family included a lifetime of experience with his patients. Dr. Stone and his wife were often seen together at their medical office, just off Sunrise near Douglas. She would greet families as they came in and ask how she could help. This pleasant and convenient location was as country medicine as it gets. The family would fill out paperwork and submit medical and identification cards issued on behalf of even the youngest children. As wards of the court, the state had allotted medical care for the infant with 100% coverage of cost. The medical evaluation had already been arranged by the social worker so that the proper provisions would be made by doctors, hospitals, and local clinics. There was an added blessing in going to the local doctor in Roseville. His heart for children had already been shown in his care for other foster children placed with Paul and Dale. Dr. Stone read the medical notes from Kaiser Hospital and added his own understanding to the quest to find remedy for this infant. During the discovery process, the obvious pain the boy was experiencing was clear to all. Mephibosheth cried more than the average child, not from fussiness, but from obvious discomfort. In addition to the deep furrow of pain between his eyes, there were the occasional seizures. After a seizure, his body would go completely limp from exhaustion. What a life for such a fragile child! We all know how this child came to be ill-formed in the womb of the drug addict. It is easy to ask why it has to be so. The mom could have asked for help sooner. Social services could have been more direct on the offer of treatment and programs. The neighbors could have cared more. God could have intervened. One could wonder for hours. But back to the focus. Dr. Stone recommended anti-seizure medication and referrals to specialists, along with a CT scan to define the mass on the brain. Of course, during a lull in the patient load at the hospital, both Dr. Stone and his wife asked the obvious question: what is the name Mephibosheth all about? The CT scan was scheduled near Southern Medical in mid-Sacramento on Isle Street. This professional facility was designed to map the inside of the human body with remarkable equipment. It was not exactly a comfortable experience for adult or child, but it was a marvelous advancement in medicine. The building had both an erudite and even scholarly look about it, yet at the same time the glass doors and bland halls could feel cold and unfeeling. Upon entering the facility, the receptionist asked for the patient's name. Mephibo, what was that? Could you spell that for me? Introductions were often awkward for new listeners. They understood deformities. They understood the trend of unique names. However, this was a true oddity. During the setup and scanning process, the question returned in a more comfortable tone. I have to admit, the clinician said, I've never heard that name before. What does it mean? This was beautiful because this was the whole life message of the child. Dale would gladly share the meaning every time. You see, Mephibosheth is a rich name from the ancient Bible history. King David was the first great king of Israel. Before he became king, he had a best friend named Jonathan. They made a pact to be friends for life and to care for each other's family. War broke out and claimed the life of Jonathan. When David became king, he sought out Jonathan's family to fulfill his covenant. He discovered that one boy had been scooped up during the chaos of war. As his nurse ran for safety, she tripped, and the little boy, Mephibosheth, became permanently lame in his feet. King David was overjoyed to meet this young man. He said to him, You will now be my son, and I will care for you as your father. He was given a royal robe, a place at the banquet table every day, and a home, courtesy of a covenant made by two faithful friends. Mephibosheth now belonged to a family and was given this beautiful status as a gift. The natural reply from the doctor, nurse, or technician would be, Oh, that is so beautiful. Then would come the follow-up question. But why would he do something that great when he had his own family? A big smile would spread across Mrs. Luce's California tan's face as she responded in her gentle Southern accent. You see, this is the same thing Jesus offers to everyone who believes. She would explain that we are born with no merit of our own. We are spiritual wrecks, full of wrongdoing, what the Bible calls sin. There is no good thing in us, yet God loves us so much that he sent Jesus to pay the price on the cross. By accepting the free gift of forgiveness, we receive the offer from God himself to be part of his family. I'm sure you've heard of John 3:16, she would say, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." With a broad smile, she would conclude, "Yes, it's like that. God loves you that much, and we love little Mephibosheth just as much, so much that we couldn't resist. We had to adopt this little tiger." The seed was planted for the gospel, and then it was back to the adventure of caring for this child and his physical needs. This was a balancing act, caring for one child in daily pain while meeting the needs of several others in the home. The house was in full motion, with multiple children under their care at the same time. It was a loving ministry that the family made their lifestyle. This juggling act included foster emergency placements, a couple of children in the approved Adopt program, nursing care assistants, and one very impressive foreign exchange student from Germany. This home was a beehive of blessing from before the sunrise to way past midnight. It was always an unusual peace to hear the gentle sounds of voices murmuring and wheezing, snorting and snoring, and the occasional happy declaration of a nonverbal child making a very verbal chatter. This cacophony of unusual sounds and squeals was the delight of life in this home. This was every perfect day's end, and Paul and Dale thanking the good Lord for each and every child. What a glorious way to live for those who could never repay.
Thank you for joining us today. Make sure to come back next week for another installment of Mephibosheth, A Twisted Life of Unexpected Grace and Mercy.